Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. Welcome back to Diego Knows. I, of course, am Diego. And today we're going to talk about a new category here called Chick-Flicks for Guys. The movie we're going to review today is called High Fidelity. That's right, High Fidelity. That movie came out in 2000, okay? It's a wonderful movie. I absolutely love this movie, and it's part of my new series that I'm doing here called Chick-Flicks for Guys. Okay, now basically what Chick-Flicks for Guys are, okay, it's basically a rom-com, but from a guy's point of view. So instead of dealing with the girls' issues, we're dealing with the guys' issues, okay? So basically, it's just taking the rom-com and flipping it around, okay? Now, the biggest reason the rom-coms are successful is because they deal with romance, they deal with falling in love, emotions, lust, all that kind of shit, okay? Things that women are attracted to in a movie, that's what it's made for, okay? Now, men, we feel these exact same emotions, okay? We just express them differently, okay? So we're more interested in watching movies where things get done, where people get saved, where missions are accomplished, okay? Whereas women tend to prefer more movies about romance, about meeting the right guy, falling in love, all that kind of shit, the perfect partner, all that kind of bullshit, okay? Now, both genres are bullshit, okay? But just men prefer one, women prefer another. That's the only difference, okay? Anything that has to do with psychological stuff, anything that has to do with romance, okay? Mind fucking, that technically it usually falls into like a female category, whereas stuff to do with action and figuring things out, and analytics, logistics, stuff like that, that tends to go towards male-dominated genre, okay? But what this movie does here is it takes the aspects of the female rom-com and applies it to men. And now this has been done many times actually, but those movies usually fail. And the reason they fail is because they treat the man like the woman. Okay, all the stuff that a girl would do, the guy ends up doing. Okay, and in the same way, and it doesn't fucking work. You can't like twist around the gender roles. Okay, it just doesn't work that way. It's not believable. Okay, when a guy is fucking standing in a phone booth in the rain crying about a girl, that's kind of shit that a girl would do in a movie. Okay, not what the guy would do in a movie. Okay, but yeah, we get shit like that all the time. I was just thinking about Say Anything. A guy's gonna hold up a fucking radio for a girl. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. All right. And the reason I bring up Say Anything, okay, is because that's a typical example of where you take a chick flick and you just fucking make the main character, instead of making it a girl, make it a guy. And make the love interest a girl instead of a guy. Boom, it's a fucking chick flick, all right? We're not talking about that, but we are going to talk about John Cusack, okay? The movie I'm reviewing today is called High Fidelity. Like I said, it came out in 2000. It stars John Cusack. Now, like myself, John Cusack is a native of Chicago. Okay, so his whole family, Joan Cusack, you probably know who she is. She's done a lot of shit too. She's not as famous as her brother, but she's been in a lot of stuff as well. She's a very, very well-respected, famous actress herself. Okay, now John Cusack I'm more Chicago than John Cusack, okay? I was actually born in Chicago, and I grew up in Chicago, okay? Whereas John Cusack was born in the suburbs, okay? He was born in Evanston, whereas we called it, when I worked there, we called it Evanstein, because they had a very, very high Jewish population, okay? You got the university there, and Northeastern University is right there. They got their own beer that they brew, and the bars nearby, Purple, by the way. Wildcats, I think that's the team. I don't fucking know. It's been years since I worked there. But anyway, yeah, we called it Evanstein because it was a very, very Jewish neighborhood. It's like the first suburb north of Chicago. Okay, Evanston, but that's where he was born. Okay, now John Cusack's father was a famous film director, producer, writer, actor. But he did mostly documentaries. Okay, so he was already in the business. He was born in the business. Okay, so to speak. Okay, so his whole family, they all became actors because their dad was a fucking actor. Go figure. Yeah, big stretch. But John Cusack was he was very well liked in Hollywood. He played the everyman pretty fucking well. Probably better than anyone else from his generation. Now, you had the guys that were the pretty boys. You had the guys that were the jocks. You had the guys that were the dark ones, Like, I'm trying to think, like the Judd Nelsons and the Rob Lowe's, They kind of went more darker. And so did the James Spaders even, But John Cusack felt in that niche of the everyman. He played the typical guy. He was a good-looking guy, but not super fucking good-looking. He was healthy, but not super athletic. He was, he had courage, but he wasn't super confident, but he wasn't super weak either. You know, so he's basically like an everyman, like a guy that you see him, you don't feel threatened by him. Women and men, we don't feel threatened by John Cusack. He's like an everyday guy. He's like the kind of guy that we could be friends with, you know? He's not full of himself, but he doesn't constantly degrade himself either, you know? He's just kind of like an everyman, and he was very good at playing that role, okay? His breakout role was Better Off Dead. You know, I want my $2. You know, that was some pretty good shit there. And he did some other stuff early in his career. I know he was in 8 Men Out, which is a great movie. It's a true story about the Chicago White Sox, about the scandal from 1916, I think it was, when they threw the World Series. Great fucking movie. Great fucking movie. But that's a serious drama. He was only a supporting character in that. But I think his first like breakout role was in 1985, I think it was, when he did A Sure Thing. And that was with Daphne Zuniga. It was one of those like teenage romantic comedies. He's like in college and he falls in love. It's been a long time since I've seen him. I know Tim Robbins was in it too for a little while. Okay, there was that one, and then he did some other stuff as well. Okay, so he's very famous, well respected in Hollywood. Now today in 2022, he's a nobody. Okay, he hasn't done anything like in 10 years worth note. You know, he's a big fucking activist, a big libtard activist. But he doesn't really act that much anymore. No one really wants to hire him. I think the last good thing he did was Room 1308, which is a Stephen King movie. That was the last thing I remember him being in that was actually good. 1308, and that was like, what, 15 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that. You know, Samuel Jackson had a small role in it, you know. And I read the book. That was a Stephen King book, and I read the book, and the book was awesome. The movie, not so much, but that was the last thing I remember seeing him in. I think he also did he did Cell, which was another Stephen King movie version of his book, Cell. That was also with Samuel Jackson, and that movie was so fucking terrible that Stephen King even like denounced that movie. He doesn't even consider that an adaptation of his fucking novel, and I don't blame him. The movie was a piece of shit. The book was much better, and the book wasn't that good. All right, so anyway, so we all know who John Cusack is. He's a famous guy. He's a staple of the 80s, staple of the 90s. He did a lot of stuff, especially in the 90s. So we know who he is. He's the main character here. Okay, now this movie called High Fidelity was written by Nick Hornsby. Now, I don't remember exactly when he wrote it. I'm guessing he wrote it in the 80s. I read the book myself. I read it in the 90s when I was in the Marines. And little did I know that when I got out of active duty and I went back to Chicago, that I would be living in the neighborhood from the movie, okay? Now, Nick Hornsby, by the way, he's actually British, okay? So that means that the book he wrote, High Fidelity, takes place in London. It is not an American book, okay? It takes place in London. So he's very into the punk rock scene, which is very popular in London. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but in the late 70s, okay, punk rock music was actually started by an American. Yes, Iggy Pop created punk music in the mid-70s. He tried to get it off here in America. Nobody liked it. Everyone was fascinated with disco. Okay, so it didn't work. So what he did, he went to United Kingdom. He went to London and he started playing punk music over there, and it took off. It took off like crazy. Okay, people wanted an alternative to disco, and it took off like fucking crazy. Next thing you know, you've got fucking, the Police, and you've got fucking Johnny Rotten, and you've got fucking, all the, I can't think of it right now, but you got all these other groups coming out there. Sex Pistols, so it blew up in England. Once it became a thing in England, then Iggy Pop brought it back to America as a fucking punk rock star, and then it took off in America well. Okay, but it started in America. A lot of people don't realize that. Okay, now the biggest push in punk rock was actually a bar in New York called CBGB's. Yes, they made a movie out of it with Alan Rickman. Okay, now CBGB's, Alan Rickman owned this little club where you had live music, okay, but he created the club for country music. I know that's what the C stands for, country music, okay? However, country music was supposed to be the next big thing, and it was the next big thing, but it didn't take off in New York. It never did take off in New York, obviously, okay? It's urban, country music is more rural, okay? So country music did take off in the mid-70s, but it took off in Nashville, Tennessee. It didn't take off in New York like this guy thought it would. So basically, he was trying to open a country western bar in New York. Nobody wanted to listen to country music in New York, so all these other people, because he couldn't book any acts, all these other people started coming in there and playing. Okay, and that was the birth of punk in America. Okay, you had people like the Police, Sting. Okay, you had like the Ramones. Okay, and yes, you had Blondie. She started off as punk too. She started off as disco, but she was really a punk rocker. Okay, and Blondie, yes, so they're all there. Okay, and CBGB's took off. Okay, and that's what made punk music popular in America, was this little underground club called CBGB's. Okay, for those of you who don't know, Now you know. Okay, and the only reason I bring this up is because this movie deals with a lot of music and also deals with a lot of songs from that era. Okay, from that era of punk. A lot of that movie, this soundtrack for this fucking movie is incredible. You've got all sorts of different artists in there. You got Motown in there. You got punk rock. You got some disco in there. You got some freedom rock. That was that rock music from the 60s. All sorts of crazy shit. Music is in there in this movie, okay? Rob Gordon, that's the main character, that's John Cusack's character, references music throughout the entire movie. Okay, and so of course, I'm sure they had to pay a lot of money for the soundtrack. Okay, now they didn't get too many known hits, known famous musical artists, because that would have cost too much. There, with the exception of Bruce Springsteen, he actually makes an appearance in the movie. You hear some of Bruce Springsteen's songs. He actually sings a song in the movie, so that's the exception. But they couldn't get like the real '80s singers like Madonna or Michael Jackson. Hell no, that shit was too expensive. Okay, so basically, this movie is salt and peppered with a lot of one-hit wonder songs. Okay, like I'm walking on sunshine, whoa, like shit like that. Okay, so there's a lot of that in there. Okay, basically think Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack. All that shit is in this movie. Okay, so now we got that out of the way. John Cusack is the main character. He plays Rob Gordon. Now this movie deals with his love life. Okay, and this is what I talk about. It's from a man's point of view. This is a rom-com from a man's point of view. We're dealing with Rob Gordon, the average guy. He owns a record store in Chicago, in Wicker Park, my neighborhood. Okay, in Chicago, Wicker Park / Bucktown. That's my neighbor in Chicago, right there, Milwaukee and North Avenue and Damon. Okay, those of you from Chicago know exactly where that is. All right, so he lives there in that neighborhood, just like I did. He lived in my neighborhood. Yeah, I know, weird, huh? I can tell by the apartments. Oh my God, it could have been my apartment. But anyway, all the apartments kind of look the same in Chicago. I'll point that out when we get to that scene. But anyway, he's there. And he owns a record store, okay, where he basically deals in old records, because at the time, even though the book was written, I think in the 80s or the 90s, I don't remember for sure, but the movie takes place in 2000, so nobody listens to records. It's all CDs. Records didn't come back. It was movies like this that brought LPs back into the market. Because people, you needed a record player to play these songs. Who the fuck had a record player in 2000? Nobody. No, that was like a relic. Your grandpa, your parents had a record player. You did not have a record player, okay? It was movies like this that brought that back. So now every fucking millennial out there has got a fucking record player now. It's because of movies like this that made it popular again. All right. So anyway, so he's there. Okay, and this movie deals with his love life, about the struggles he's had, and it's not just his current relationship; it's all the relationships he's had in the past. So we're going to go into a deep dive on all of his past relationships and what he did wrong, what they did wrong, and why does he keep ending up in these relationships with girls that end up fucking leaving him, that end up hurting him. Okay, so yeah, I mean that's quite a topic for a movie. You usually don't see that. I've seen a lot of chick flicks that dealt with this very same topic. Okay, this is the only one I've seen that I can think of right now, at least, which I should tell you something, that actually deals with this exact topic from a man's point of view. That's the difference, from a man's point of view. Okay. Now, to round out the cast here, we've got Laura. That's the love interest. That's his girlfriend who breaks up with him right in the beginning of the movie. She's played by a girl named Eben Hajaj. I can't pronounce that name. It's Danish. Okay. She's actually she's from Copenhagen. She was born in Copenhagen. I guess she was a star. Now, to say she was a movie star over there, a Dutch movie star, would be stretching it. She was an actress over there. She did a couple of American movies, and that's it, okay? I've never seen her before in anything, and I've never seen her again in anything, all right? So she's not a very big working actress, okay? The character Marie DeSalle, that's another love interest for him. It's played by Lisa Bonet. Now, a strange note here is they actually rebooted this movie into a TV show. Now, you probably did not know that because nobody fucking watched that TV show. That's why. That's why you didn't know that, okay? But they did reboot this movie into a TV show. I think it lasted 8 episodes. I actually have those episodes, but I've never watched it. Why? Because I don't give a shit. Okay, why would I want to watch? I love this movie so much. Why would I want to watch a TV show about this exact movie, but they race swapped it and they gender swapped it? What the fuck? This is already a fucking gender swap movie, okay? This is a chick flick, but they put a guy in there. But they're playing by guy rules, so I don't want to watch a fucking gender and race swap version of this fucking movie. All right. But anyway, the reason I pointed out is that on the TV show, the one from 2020, Lisa Bonet's daughter, Zoe Kravitz, yes, y'all know who she is. Zoe Kravitz actually plays John Cusack's character. Yeah. You see, did I tell you that nobody watched this fucking show? Exactly. Okay. Yes. Okay. And I'm sure she did it because her mom was in in the original version. All right. Okay. And also, this is the very first time that I ever saw Jack Black in a movie. This movie was my introduction to Jack Black. Now, I did not know who the fuck this guy was until I saw this movie. And he had a great role in this movie. He stole every scene he was in. He was great in this movie. Now, I do know something about Jack Black, because I do know that he was actually he was a child actor. He's done a lot of fucking shit, okay, that you just never saw it. Because every fucking pilot he was on got canceled right away. But I do remember him now from I saw some commercials from like the 80s, like toy commercials and shit, where he was a kid and he was doing the commercials. So yeah, so Jack Black's been around a long fucking time. But yeah, this is the first time I ever saw him in a movie where like he actually like made an impression on me and I remembered him afterwards, okay? And then his career blew up after this. All right. And then there's a bunch of other people in there, like Catherine Zeta-Jones in there, Tim Robbins is in there. So is what's her name? Sarah Gilbert from Roseanne. Yeah, Darlene from Roseanne. Yeah, she's in there. A lot of other people. I mean, they even had his parents are played by John Travolta's sister, Margaret Travolta, and his dad is played by the late great Harold Ramis. Okay, one of the guys from SCTV, one of the creators of Ghostbusters. You know, he played Egon Spengler in those Ghostbuster movies. Okay, yeah, he's in there too. Okay. Okay, and the movie's directed by a guy named Stephen Frears. Now, I have no fucking idea who this guy is. I looked at his IBM and IMB, and I've never seen any of the shit that he's done. Okay, was there anything? Okay, no, I have not. But I've heard of a lot of the movies he's done. This guy's an artsy-fartsy director. Okay, he doesn't really do any movies that have like how do you say it? Men in them. Okay, but some movies that he did that are of note, hey, that's fine. Not everything has to be a market for me. Okay, but some of the things that he's done. Okay, he did Dangerous Liaisons in 1988. He directed that. That's the one John Malkovich, Glenn Close, and Michelle Pfeiffer. And I guess they're both like fucking ever. I don't know. They've remade this movie so many times. I saw the 90s version, The Cruel Intentions. I saw that one with Ryan Phillippe and Reese Witherspoon. I saw that version. But the original version, I guess, although the actual story was written back in the 1700s, but the 1988 version was called Dangerous Liaisons. He directed that. He also directed The Queen in 2006. Now, how the fuck you get a Helen Mirren to look like Queen Elizabeth? Not Queen. Who's the one that just died? That was a Queen Elizabeth, wasn't it? Anyway, who the fuck is the Queen that just? I don't give a shit. I'm not fucking British. But anyway, yeah, she played the Queen. Helen Mirren played the Queen, okay? Because they've been trying to make her a thing for like the past like 15 years. She's supposed to be like the sexy British grandma, and it just ain't working. It just ain't working. All right, sorry. She was sexy like in Excalibur, okay, and in White Knights. I mean, that was the early 80s, okay? But now you can't market her that way. They did that in Red. They tried to make her the sexy grandma, the gilf. This shit ain't working for me, all right? She'll say Grifters. I do know about that movie. I never saw it, but I know about it. That's with Angelica Houston and John Cusack's in that as well. And what's her name? Fucking Warren Beatty's wife. I can't think of her fucking name right now. But anyway, she's in it too. Okay. And then he also did a movie called Mary Riley, which was a retelling of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now, I never actually watched that movie, but I did read the book. Hey, when you're out in the fucking desert, okay, and you're bored out of your mind, okay, you listen to a lot of audiobooks, okay, and I listened to this one, okay. Mary Riley, it's basically Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but it's told from the maid's point of view. And the movie they made of it was with John Malkovich again, okay, and what's her name? Fucking Julia Roberts was the maid, okay, yeah. So take from that what you will, all right. Anyway, and the book wasn't that great either. All right. So let's start the review here, okay? So the movie begins, okay, with the record is playing. They show the credits and all that, okay? We're listening to 80s, 90s music, mostly 80s right now. In this scene, it's 80s music. I cannot pin the song though, but when I do recognize the song, I will tell you about it here, okay? It's an older stereo system. It's a stereo system, a very expensive stereo system from the 80s that he's listening to. He's got his headphones hooked up to. These are the big headphones that you actually had to plug them in back in the day, as we did, okay? And he's listening to that. He's listening to fucking, just punk rock music. Okay, and he's also breaking the fourth wall. Now he will continue this entire movie. Rob Gordon breaks the fourth wall. He talks to you the way I'm talking to you right now. That's the way John Cusack's character talks to the audience. Okay, he tells you basically what he's thinking. He's thinking out loud, and he's telling you exactly what he's thinking. So you, the viewer, are a character in this movie, and I thought that was a pretty good touch because the novel is in the first person. So to make the movie in the first person as well is kind of cool. Okay. So he's there with his headphones on. He breaks the fourth wall, and he explains. He's very depressed. Obviously, he's listening to stupid ass music, and he talks about how parents, in society, are very worried about the kids today. They're worried about kids playing with guns. They're worried about all the violence on TV. They're worried about all this stuff that could hurt people out there. Okay, just the celebration of violence that is such an American thing. It really is. Okay, and he's talking about parents are always concerned about kids playing with guns and too much violence on TV. And people hurting each other and stuff. But no one ever gives a shit. No one ever worries about kids that spend thousands of hours listening to songs about heartbreak, pain, rejection, misery, and loss. No one gives a shit about that. Well, that analogy could be made today, okay? I mean, people are always worried that there's going to be a school shooting or something, but no one gives a shit about their fucking kids playing video games where they're literally blowing people up and blowing people in half, okay? Blowing them up in half, okay? Even it wasn't until I became a parent that I started realizing, oh my God, all this violence from shit that I grew up watching. That was cool when I was a kid, but now I'm a parent, and I'm like, holy shit, man. My kid is watching people get cut in half. People get shot over and over again. And, when I was a kid, that was cool, and now I'm just like, oh, my God, dude. I mean, we're so desensitized to it until the real thing happens, So he's making that argument here. It's like parents don't give a shit about the songs that their kids are listening to. They care about what's going on in the real world. They're not paying attention to what the kids are actually listening to. They're listening to depression. They're listening to heartache, pain, rejection, misery, loss, okay? It's a dangerous thing, man. It really is, So he asked the circular question, do I listen to pop music because I'm miserable, or am I miserable because I listen to pop music? Exactly, okay? Everything that we do in life is an exchange between one form and another, okay? So we share something, we give something. It's all give and take, okay? It's a cyclic relationship that we have with everything, I give my attention to music. Music gives me entertainment for a little while, and that's how it goes, constantly back and forth. So it's no far stretch to say these things can mix with each other. Some of the music gets instilled into my brain permanently because I listen to it so much, and because I invested so much into listening to music, I'm teaching myself to listen to it over and over again. You see, I'm instructing myself. Okay, I'm training myself to depend on this music now over and over because I'm doing it so much. You see, it's a cyclic relationship. It's weird how that works. But it's true. It's true. So he's definitely got a point there. Now, all of a sudden at this point, Laura walks in. Now, Laura is his girlfriend. Apparently, they just broke up. She's all upset. You can tell she's been crying. But she walks in there all indignant while he's fucking indigent while he's listening to his music on his headphone. He sees her. She unplugs it. And he tells her, hey, you don't have to leave right this second. And she's like, we've already done the hard part. Now it's just time for me to go. And he wants her to stay. He's like, hey, well, you don't have to leave right now. You can leave next week. No, the hard part's over. I gotta go. Well, then just stay tonight then. No. And she starts walking away from him. Now, we don't know what happened. All we know is she's upset. She obviously just broke up with him, and that's the reason he's listening to this music. That's why he instead of talking to her, he decided to go to his stereo and put his headphones on and listen to the fucking sad bastard music. All right? So he gets up, she gets his attention. She walks out of there. Okay, she grabs some of her stuff. Apparently she's already packed her big stuff. Okay, she grabs her last minute stuff, and he tries to stop her. He's like, hey, and she just cuts him off, and she walks out of the apartment. And the apartment kind of looks kind of like mine. It's a guy's apartment, definitely. Does not have a woman's touch, but he's got records everywhere. He's got posters everywhere of art, of music, the kind of stuff that I used to have too. Okay, if you look at my place right now, my penthouse right now, I've got posters of that shit everywhere. Okay, the stuff stuff that I like. You know, I got movie posters. I got sports figures. You know, all the shit that I like. I decorate my living quarters with that stuff too. So I totally relate to this guy. I related to him immediately. I know what it's like to be depressed and feel bad about a girl and cry about a girl, and you know, and feel like, you know, well, why am I dating all the fucking time when every single time I date it doesn't work out? Yeah, I know what it's like to feel that way, because we feel that way too, ladies, just like you do. We feel that way too. All right. It sucks when you invest so much into a person only to have that person leave you. It hurts. It hurts a lot, man. And that's what this movie deals with. It deals with the pain of losing relationships. Okay, and what is your part in it? And that's the hardest part to accept. And I love that that's what this movie deals with. It deals with what is your part in it. What is it that you did wrong, that you continue to do wrong? Okay, that explains why all your relationships end in shit. Okay, this movie goes there. Okay, you got to ask yourself some serious deep dive questions, some serious self-exploration in there. Okay, some serious deconstruction of the character to find out what it is about him that causes him to always end up in a relationship where a girl breaks his heart. That's what this movie talks about. Okay, and they do it in such a real way, which I love, and it's funny as well with some great music. Okay, so that's why I love this movie, and that's what we're going to deal with here. Okay, so anyway, she leaves. He wants her to stay. Now, he lives on the third floor of some apartment. I do not remember the street he's on. Okay, I didn't recognize the street. It's a quick glimpse. Okay, it could be any street in the neighborhood. Okay, I know my street. Okay, but I don't know what street this was in. But it was a third floor apartment. I had a second floor apartment. Okay, but otherwise it could have been my apartment. All right. Anyway, he wants her to stay. You know, and she won't talk to him, and he's very upset. Okay, so then he breaks the fourth wall. Okay, while she's walking down the stairs with her luggage, he breaks the fourth wall. He's pissed off. He's pacing around his apartment, you know, and he says, "Desert Island, top 5 all-time most memorable breakups in chronological order." This is what he says to the camera. He says, Allison Ashmore, Penny Hardwick, Charlie Nicholson, Sarah Kendrew. Those are the ones that really, really hurt. Do you see your name anywhere on that list, Laura? Maybe you'd sneak into the top 10, but top 5 is only for the humiliation and heartbreak that you are just not capable of delivering. And he cranks up the music. Plays loud music, and he sticks his head out of the window and screams at Laura as she's getting in her car. You know, she's about to drive. He's like, "If you wanted to mess me up, you should have gotten to me earlier." Then he slams the window down. Okay, now at this point, I got to point out something that I didn't. It's been a long time since I've seen this movie. Okay, I didn't catch it at the time because I was a young man when I was in my 20s when I saw this movie. Okay, for the first time, and I saw it in Chicago. I did not realize just how melodramatic this movie is, okay? The way he's acting here, pacing around, screaming out loud, opening the window, screaming at his ex-girlfriend out there, you know? This is not stuff a normal guy would do, okay? But I didn't catch it. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I guess maybe because I was an artsy-fartsy type of guy back then, you know, and I was going to art school, that to me, this seemed like normal behavior. You know, to sit and mope and sulk, you know, and brood, you know, listen to music. To me, that's normal behavior. It's not normal behavior. But to me, it was. So I didn't see that as anything out of the ordinary. But yes, it is. If you look at it again, now I'm older now, I'm wiser. You know, and I'm looking at it now, oh my God, dude, this is like, grown-ups don't act this way. You know, you don't do that. But I didn't catch it back then because I was immature back then. I didn't see anything wrong with it, you know? Okay, so he's, like I said, he's pacing around. He's obviously very angry. And it's pretty obvious what he's doing here, okay? He's using anger to hide the fact that his feelings are hurt. Okay, he is suffering inside. It's like his stomach. You know that feeling you get when bad news surprises you, and when you feel your heart just drop. That's what he's feeling right now, and that's why he's covering it with anger. He's hiding it with anger. You know, and that's what a lot of us do. I just don't understand how, like, when a woman does it, you know, or when she does it, you know, the guys are like, "Well, you just don't understand what she's going through." You know, but when a guy does it, it's like, "Oh my God, you are such an immature asshole." You ever notice that double standard? When guys do it, they're an immature asshole, but when girls do it, it's because we don't understand what she's going through. Yeah, it doesn't seem very fair. Oh, well, anyway, I'm going to stop my review right here. This is the end of part 1. I'll be back very soon with part 2. And I thank you very much for coming with me on this journey, and I'll see you soon on the next one.